What's up, y'all? This is Blake&VishSports. We're here with the big man, the myth, the legend, Sports Illustrated's Grant Cohn. Always an honor to have you, Grant. What's up? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I have usually I don't work on the weekends, but my wife's working this weekend, so I'm working this weekend. It's great to spend it with you guys. I hit you up on Friday, so let's do it on your channel, man. And I'm happy to be here. You guys have a great channel.
So it's awesome to be here, Blake. We got Blake here too, and so here we go. So guys, we got to get right into it. We can't mess around here. So I put out my first, I would say, controversial tweet this weekend when I talked about wide receiver Ja'Marr Chase, who in most people's eyes is a top 15 pick, guaranteed, and a future NFL super duper star. I mean, I got people here saying he's definitely a better prospect than CeeDee Lamb was last year. So a lot of people jumped on me for that tweet. So we're going to get straight into talking about him. All right, guys. In your opinion, is Ja'Marr Chase a can't-miss prospect? Let's start with you, Blake.
So coming into this, before I looked into him a lot more, I would have said, like, the way he was talked about by the media, like, this dude is generational. Whatever that term means, you hear that about every position, some guy every year. So that term's a little overrated in my eyes. But anyway, looking into him deeper, right, he's really strong. He put up insane numbers with Burrow. He sat out the season to prep, and he looks really good. I think he'll be a top 15 pick. I think he deserves to be a top 15 pick. But do I think he's better than Devonta Smith or Waddle? No, and here's why. Those guys, the separation they create is insane. That is the one thing that he doesn't do insanely well. And he doesn't have the top-end speed when he does go over the top to – I guess it's this is more nitpicky, but he doesn't have like that low 4.4 speed. He seems like a 4.5 guy. So I don't think he's a can't miss prospect. I think he'll be good. I do think he'll be good, but yeah, he worries me a little bit with the lack of separation.
All right. So I'm with you a little bit there. You'll hear my thoughts a little later, but first we got to hear Grant's thoughts on Ja'Marr Chase.
Okay, I'm sure Vish has a lot more to say. I just started watching him today, and like Blake, my impression of him just from watching Justin Jefferson last year was Ja'Marr Chase is 6'3", maybe 6'4", 215. He's like, I don't know what the comparison would be, but he's like the Adonis. He's exactly what you want a wide receiver to look like, but then he's not. He's 6 feet 208, and his arms aren't super long either. He's kind of a mid-sized wide receiver. And then, like, you look at him like, well, how does he win? What does he do well? He runs down the sideline a lot. He'll run go routes. He'll catch 50-50 balls. He'll run stop routes. He's very physical, but I don't feel like corners respect his speed at all. I watched one game from him. It was the game against Alabama from 2019. He went up against Surtain and whoever number 7 was. Number 7? Diggs. Okay. Yeah. So Diggs just got in his face and jammed the whole game. He did give up a touchdown where he like jammed him and then fell, like slipped and fell down. But Diggs basically gave him no respect. Surtain is not nearly as physical. I think Diggs is better. Surtain wouldn't jam him. He would give him free release. And he gave up the one in-breaking catch that I saw him all game. He caught a slant and had a little yards after the catch. I don't think he wins in enough ways. They don't put him in motion. The number one receiver was Justin Jefferson. The whole offense was putting Justin Jefferson in the slot or in all kind of different places, so you don't really know where he is. You have to find him. If you overplay him, boom, big play to Ja'Marr Chase. I don't think he wins in enough ways to be a number one receiver in the NFL. He might be a really good number 2.
Yeah, okay. So you guys both hit on a lot of the points I wanted to touch on. And the first thing is, how does he win? Okay, this is the most important thing. First thing you got to do when you're watching Ja'Marr Chase is forget the stats, okay? AJ Green, who in my opinion is the best wide receiver prospect I've ever seen in my lifetime since 2010, when I've really started watching football in-depthly in the draft and stuff. I've been watching in-depthly since 25. I've really been watching the draft since about 2010. The 3 best receiver prospects of my lifetime are AJ Green, Julio Jones, and Sammy Watkins, of which I think AJ Green's the best. AJ Green did not have a 1,000-yard season in Georgia. He did not. He had 2 900-yard seasons and 1 800-yard season. So throw away the stats. They don't matter. Let's look at the Alabama game, right? You brought it up with Trevon Diggs. He had wins against Trevon Diggs. The problem is the way he won, he also lost against Trevon Diggs. How many receivers that would get drafted in the top 15 do you see that let cornerbacks get two hands on them in press coverage? That's a problem. And my big
as the
problem
game
is,
went on, Diggs got more and more confident. He was like jumping into
He was
him.
pressing him the whole time, right?
Right. And
Sorry.
AJ Terrell, right? He baptized AJ Terrell at the catch point in Clemson. But if you go back in the national title game, if you go back and watch, AJ Terrell also had some wins against him where AJ Terrell got two hands on him and absolutely shut him down. So from that standpoint, like, he actually reminds me a lot of Justin Blackmon when Justin Blackmon came out. And I'll throw another similarity here. If you remember Justin Blackmon's sophomore year, Prince Amukamara was supposed to be a top 20 pick, and he was a top 20 pick, similar to AJ Terrell. And Justin Blackmon abused Prince Amukamara as a true sophomore before that draft. And people said, wow, look at Justin Blackmon abusing him. Now, we couldn't see Justin Blackmon's career, but I think a lot of the things with Ja'Marr Chase, the way he wins, I just have concerns about that translating to the NFL. When you're winning at the catch point with superior play strength and ball skills, you better be a 6'3", 220-pound receiver with long arms. And you hit me with the long arms. That's what really gets me. Yeah. Like, I've seen comps like Des Bryant. Des Bryant is 6'3", 225, and has 34-inch arms.
Right.
Like, the way
even Crabtree had long arms.
Crabtree had 34-inch arms. He had longer arms and bigger hands than 6'5" Calvin Johnson. The way Ja'Marr Chase wins, I don't think you can do this against a Stephon Gilmore, against a Jalen Ramsey, if you're locked up on the outside like that. And A.J. Brown is another comparison you can throw out, maybe, but A.J. Brown is 25 pounds heavier and has 33-inch arms. I don't think Ja'Marr Chase has 33-inch arms.
Oh, A.J. Brown's way bigger than him.
Right. Way bigger. So for that reason,
he looks like Debo. Debo's what, 5'11", 215? This guy's 6 feet, 208?
He's 220. He's 220. And
Debo
has short arms, but Debo has 10-inch hands. So my thing is, look, it's not that I don't think Ja'Marr Chase is a good player. I think he's a first-round draft pick. I think he's a very good player. But there's no way this is a top 15 draft pick as a wide receiver to me, and there's no way this is a generational prospect. Physically, he's not the most gifted athlete in this draft as a receiver. And so that's where Jerry Jeudy coming out of college was a better player than Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk was the athletically more gifted player. A lot of reason why Jerry Jeudy was better was because Jerry Jeudy was in a better situation than Brandon Ayuk. You put Brandon Ayuk in a better situation in the NFL, there's nobody in the world that would say Jerry Jeudy is better than Brandon Ayuk. So from that standpoint, physically, I don't think he's the most impressive of these receivers. He's a really good player. He's physical at this catch point. There's a lot of things he does well, but I think he was aided by Joe Burrow and Joe Burrow's magical ability to keep plays alive. Joe Burrow's incredible ability to throw back shoulder. And this is a first-round pick, but there's no way you can tell me this is generational.
If he had played in 2020, his numbers would have went down. No Burrow, no Justin Jefferson. The expectation is take the next step. You're the number one guy. Go crazy. It wouldn't have happened. That's why he said I sat out.
Sorry, go ahead. After the catch, though, I think we've talked about this, Vish. I actually do like him after the catch. I think he's, like we mentioned, that he is strong and he wins with physicality. I think he'll be solid after the catch. I really do. What do you guys think?
Like a running back. He's 6 feet.
No, I don't. I'm not even that impressed by that part of his game. Like, what does he do?
He can break tackles.
Yeah, he does.
He can break tackles, but you see, like, they don't give him the ball on reverses, jet sweeps, none of that stuff. He's not someone that they're like, we got to get the ball in his hands. When it's time for a screen, it's Justin Jefferson.
Who's better after the catch, him or CeeDee Lamb from last year? Because I say it's not close. It was CeeDee Lamb last year. CeeDee Lamb was special after the catch. You needed 3 people to bring him down, and he could make you miss. Like, I again, look, a lot of this is projection, right? So the most dominant college football receiver, like Michael Crabtree and Justin Blackmon, both won 2 Blickentoff Awards. Michael Crabtree won the Blickentoff Award, I think. Blitnikoff. I can't pronounce it.
He's old school. Blitnikoff.
Right. The award. The award. I'll just say the award for the best receiver in college football. Okay. Yeah. And Justin Blackmon won it over AJ Green and Julio Jones in 2011. The bottom line is that, like, you have to look at projection and how you win in the NFL. And I think this is the comparison. Anquan Boldin. But I think Anquan Boldin, for every Anquan Boldin, how many receivers have been compared to Anquan Boldin over the years? I mean, I can just think about.
Anquan Boldin was 6 feet, 225. Anquan Boldin was a freak. There's no.
That man was awesome. That man was huge.
He would just punk people. I mean, this guy is not like, he's not strong like that. No.
I think his strength is. I think his strength for his frame is actually extremely impressive. But
It
I
is
mean,
impressive.
again, like
But Bolden
I'll
is
throw
like
another
Hercules.
name around him. I'll throw another name out. A guy who won in a similar way. I'm not going to take credit for this because this is Croc, but Croc pointed this out to me. How did N'Keal Harry win in college? Play strength, ball skills at the catch point. And I would say he had a bit more wiggle after the catch than Jamar Chase, but the same thing at the line of scrimmage. They both weren't quick and they didn't win immediately at the line of scrimmage. And look at what's happened in N'Keal Harry in the NFL. So you have to project. Look, he's a better prospect than N'Keal Harry was. I'm not saying anything like that. He's a first-round prospect for sure, but I don't understand how people tell me this is a top 15 wide pick as a wide receiver.
See,
There's no way.
Harry should be a flanker. He should be off the line of scrimmage. He can't beat press. He's not super fast. He's got a big frame. He's good running like digs from a flanker position. But Chase, he doesn't have the big. He doesn't have the arm length. He has to be a split end. He needs to be on the line of scrimmage, threatening you deep with his speed. But he gets hung up on press coverage. He doesn't look like a 4-3 guy. He looks like a 4-4 guy, which is cool. Yeah. But he basically plays like DK Metcalf. He runs like 4 routes and stays in one position. And he's, instead of being 6'3", 230, he's running a 4.3. He's 6 feet 208, running a 4.4. So, but not great.
I'm worried about his, like, you know, if he's not going to be the biggest guy, which we've mentioned, maybe he'll have that, you know, over the top of the corner speed, but he doesn't seem to really have that. Like, he's not burning dudes like that. They'll catch up to him and he'll beat them at the point of attack when, you know, he can just body them because he's big, but that's going to be harder to do when you're going up against, like we've said, the NFL cornerbacks.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly that. It's how is he going to win in the NFL? Like, and he lined up in one spot really at LSU. He wasn't a guy that was moved around a lot too. So you can't say, well, he would be a great slot in the NFL because we didn't really get to see him play in the slot. Not saying he couldn't be, but I don't know. I
didn't do any gadget stuff with him. No gadget stuff with him. Which I mean, that concerns me because that's a big part of offenses now in the NFL. If you can't give anything like that, you better be 6'3". You better be DK Metcalf.
I don't know. I just think that the way he wins, I'm just worried about it. Because all the comps you see too, I see some Larry Fitzgerald, I've seen some Des Bryant. Those guys have 3 inches and 2-inch longer wingspans than him. That's so important. And honestly, I mean, if we're talking like a general receiver topic, I think both of you are with me on this, but you can say, I don't think it's worth it taking a top 15 receiver unless he's truly special, like AJ Green, like Julio Jones,
Jerry Rice,
Sammy Watkins was out of college, because there's a lot of second round, third round receivers who are as good athletes as the guys who get picked in the first round that are in worse situations. And because of where they get drafted, the situations flip in the NFL and those guys become better NFL receivers. Blake, what do you think of that?
I'm honestly fine taking him top 15, and I think the Giants would be the best spot for him. I know there's been talk about him going 3 to the Dolphins. I think that'd be just absolutely insane. I would not want to take him at 3, but I think the Giants are solid.
That's why we're talking about him this way, because he's going to go top 5. And what Vish and you guys are saying is, if you feel you have like a no doubt future Hall of Fame wide receiver, you take him in round 1. But I don't see that with Jamar Chase. We have a lot of questions about him. And someone in the comment section said, well, you know, Steve Smith wasn't super big and he wanted the cash point. Steve Smith was a 3rd round pick. This guy's going to be a top 5 pick at wide receiver, going to go to a team probably with a terrible quarterback and going to be expected to like make some type of huge impact. I mean, I didn't even see him do that at LSU.
Steve Smith was also a punt returner for a lot of his career. So that tells you how good he was after the catch. Yeah. I didn't see Jamar Chase returning punts. Usually if you're an elite athlete as a college football receiver, they will have you return punts. Brandon Ayuk returned punts and kickoffs. Odell Beckham returned punts and kickoffs. CeeDee Lamb returned kick punts for the Dallas Cowboys this year. Des Bryant returned punts as a rookie.
Now, to be fair, Justin Jefferson didn't do that either at LSU, but they got the ball in his hands so many different ways. It's obvious when you watch the game. There's 1,000 ways to get Justin Jefferson involved, behind the line of scrimmage, over the middle, screens. And then when it's Jamar Chase's turn, it's like, no, we're just going to throw it down the sideline again. And he's a great like X factor to have on your offense. Like you have to worry about Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Justin Jefferson and the scramble because Joe Burrow could move. And once you're trying to figure out all of that, oh my God, we got Jamar Chase running down the sideline for an 80-yard touchdown. Yeah, that's tough. But if he's going to go to what? Miami? and be like, make Tua great. Oh, I don't know about that.
And Blake, do you have anything more?
I was gonna say he's also a beast at running slants. Like him over the middle on slants, like his catch in traffic's insane. Like I don't think we've mentioned that yet. Like there's a reason that when there's a 50-50 balls way, it's more like a 70-30. At least how it was in college. And over the middle, like on slants, he's physical enough to where he's not going to get bothered too much.
Right.
I think he'll be a beast on.
No, you're right. You're right. He is a baller. I don't want to get that out of the way. He's a baller. He's
not
competitive.
Like
he's physical. But people are
I think he's going to have a tough time with big corners, guys. I think you saw it in this game. I think Trayvon Diggs gave him a lot of problems, and he did much better against Patrick Surtain, who I have questions about because he plays kind of small for a corner. I think the guy's going to have problems with big corners because he doesn't have the quickness at the line of scrimmage to use that speed. If you get your hands on him and you're as strong as he is, he's out of the play.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, in the NFL, there isn't enough time for him to win where a corner gets two hands on him and he shakes him off because of his play strength. Usually the play is done. It's
He's
done.
But complaining about being held, it's like, nah, dude, you just got jammed again by Trayvon Diggs. I mean, that game, like Trayvon Diggs just fell one time, basically. Other than that, he kicked his ass.
I mean, yeah, you're right. First step quickness is greater than 40 time, and he attacks the ball. Part of our problem with him is that first step, he's not winning immediately. And
Justin
that's
Jefferson has it.
Right, and Devonta Smith has it. And one more thing I wanted to add is before I wanted to get into his NFL fit, because I think both Blake and I have one that I think is probably the best spot for him. But in terms of one more thing is I see all the time this, Justin Jefferson and him were on the same team, but he was the best receiver on that team. Well, why don't we do that for Devonta Smith? Everybody always asks the questions about Devonta Smith's weight. Well, Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs were top 15 picks, and they were on that team. And there's no way you can tell me Devonta Smith wasn't the best receiver on that team with Tua in 2019 or 2020. So that would be my thing. Blake, give me your best fit for Ja'Marr Chase in the NFL.
I think we talked about it, and I mentioned him. I think the Giants would be the perfect place. Now, they've been getting mocked receiver a lot, mainly due to just who they have there and the lack of talent. But mainly it's been Waddle or Smith. I don't think they need a smaller guy. I think they need like a guy who can, muscle people out, who's bigger and stronger. And then I know you brought this up to me earlier, but Jason Garrett's the OC there, and Dez is like somewhat of a comp for Ja'Marr Chase. I wouldn't say he's the best one, but you can kind of see where they're going with that. So I think that'd be a really good fit because they need someone like him.
Grant, best fit for Ja'Marr Chase in the NFL.
Any team with a great quarterback, because he's going to need one. He had one in college that I think made him look better than he is. And if he's supposed to like resurrect Tua's career, it's not going to happen. If he's supposed to resurrect Sam Darnold's career, it's not going to happen. If he gets to go play with Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or something like that, I think he'll play well. I think Aaron Rodgers could make him a weapon. But so it's going to have to be some brilliant quarterback making that guy a weapon. He's not a transcendent talent. So I don't know. I don't know if it's not going to happen. He's going to get taken too high, go to a team that doesn't have a quarterback, and he's going to be a disappointment. He's going to bounce around, I think.
Okay, so for me, I'll just start with the Miami thing because that's a popular one. Miami trades down like 3 spots and then takes Ja'Marr Chase at 6 or at 3 or whatever. I think that's a horrible fit. It's a horrible fit for Tua. Let's be honest. Tua is just not a contested thrower. He just does not throw balls into traffic. He does not throw with bodies around him, and he doesn't throw with when there's a split window, my guy's got a chance. He doesn't make throws like that. That was part of his problem, and that's why they preferred Fitzpatrick, because Tua wasn't aggressive. If he wasn't wide open to him, because that's all he saw in college, he wasn't pulling the trigger. And Ja'Marr
Another
Chase
reason why Mac Jones is better than him. Another reason why Mac Jones.
Ja'Marr Chase is never going to be wide open, in my opinion, in the NFL, just because of the way he wins. We've obviously hit on it ad nauseum in this. And so I think that would be a horrible fit. I love the Giants. I think the Giants is the perfect fit for him. Mm-hmm. One, Blake brought it up. This was something we talked before you got on, Grant. It's the Jason Garrett. They can use him kind of like Dez Bryant, who won in a similar way, though Dez, we've hit it, was bigger, had longer arms, and a bit more athletic. They won in a similar way. And 2, I think he's exactly what the doctor ordered for their offense. The one thing you can say about Ja'Marr Chase is that he's an alpha. He plays with swagger. There's a strength to his game. There's a lot of good things to like, and the Giants are missing that, and Daniel Jones needs that. There's nobody on that offense.
He has good hand-eye coordination.
Yeah, phenomenal hand-eye coordination.
He's really good
Great
at that,
hands
yeah.
at the catch point.
Strong.
And
yeah.
So Daniel Jones really needs somebody where he can say, okay, nobody's open. At least I can throw it up, and this guy's going to go up and fight for me. Like right now, he has Evan Ingram where he throws him a perfect pass, and Evan Ingram drops it.
But again, I really feel like you shouldn't be drafting wide receivers in round 1 unless you feel like they're really, truly super duper special and almost bust proof. If you feel like you can, like Brandon Ayuk is that guy at 25, great. You were right. But you don't want Henry Ruggs. You don't want Jerry Jeudy. And I think other than quarterback, what position busts more than wide receiver? No one. Yeah. So you got to really feel like 100% sold on a guy to take him that high. And I'm not saying this guy's going to be a bust, and I'm not going to be wrong about him, that I'm being too harsh. I just feel like there's too many questions to be like, yeah, definitely top 10. The guy's going to change my offense.
No,
I don't know.
No, 100%. And there was two things. And Blake, I wanted to get your take on this, but let's talk about the top receivers in the NFL right now. Stephon Diggs, 4th-round pick. Mike Thomas, 2nd-round pick. DeAndre Hopkins, 26 to 32 pick in the 1st round. Who else? Devontae Adams, 2nd-round pick. Keenan Allen, 3rd-round pick. So, like this.
Look what the Steelers do every day. Look what the Steelers do every year.
Everyone says running backs you can get later, but receivers, it's showing the same thing. Blake, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I'm with you, but I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say like you shouldn't draft a receiver in the 1st round, because there's been like you've had Beckham, you've had Julio, you've had AJ Green,
Justin Jefferson this past year.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson. I guess CD Lamb to a certain extent too. I think Jeudy will get there. But like
Ayuk.
Yeah, Ayuk. There's tons of guys in the 1st round that go, and you could say positional value and all that, but they translate over really, really well. And there's a lot of them. But there is also a lot of
every year there's a Jalen Reagor too.
Yeah, but there is also guys in the 2nd round where if you look at the 2nd and 3rd rounds of the last few drafts, I mean, there's tons and tons of quality receivers.
Here's the point. I think the success of a wide receiver is greatly dependent on the quarterback he plays with. And what's going to happen to Jamar Chase is he's probably going to go to a team with a bad quarterback, because those are the teams that pick in the top 10. What the Steelers do every year is what they've been doing is, look, we have Ben Roethlisberger. We'll take Chase Claypool in round 3 and give him Ben Roethlisberger, and he's going to be in a better position to succeed than Joe Blow, who goes top 10 and has to play with Teddy Bridgewater or something like that. And they're always right.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually offense is a little more, just because the quarterback thing, there's only so many of those guys who can take receivers, like the way Aaron Rodgers did it for James Jones and did it with Jordy Nelson and did it with Randall Cobb. Like there's
you got to
only
have
so
a
many
Hall of
guys,
Fame quarterback.
Right.
But if you do have a Hall of Fame quarterback, then you don't necessarily need to be spending 1st-round picks on wide receivers. And if you don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback, you should probably be trying to get one of those instead of spending top 10 picks on wide receivers, because you still don't have the quarterback.
And honestly, the bottom line for Jamar Chase, and I think this was with Justin Jefferson, Jason brought up, remember when Justin Jefferson was just a slot receiver? That was a BS narrative to begin with. But I think one of the things that people don't talk about enough with Justin Jefferson, as good as he is, because he's fantastic, is that he landed in the perfect spot for his game in terms of what highlights him: his route running, his great hands, his toughness, his shake, his releases. The fact that they don't line him up outside the numbers, it's a tight split offense because it's the Shanahan-Kubiak offense, and it's a lot of play action, and it takes advantage of his route running. Like, that helped him a lot. And I think that's the same thing for Jamar Chase. If he goes to an offense that asks him to line up close to the line of scrimmage and win on slants and a lot of quicker passes and win from the line of scrimmage, well, then Jamar Chase is going to bust. But if he goes to a vertical offense that's going to throw him a lot of back shoulder fades, that's going to have a lot of alerts where if there's one-on-one coverage with Jamar Chase, just throw it up and let him draw a PI and let him go fight and play this dirty kind of game on the outsides, and he's going to be pretty successful.
I got a good landing spot for him, but he's never going to make it there. Arizona. They'd be great with him. He'd be better than Christian Kirk. If they could put him on the other side of DeAndre Hopkins, because Hopkins is the number 1 guy. Hopkins can do everything. And then if you overplay Hopkins, oh my God, Jamar Chase gets you for a big play. That's the kind of guy I see him as. I don't know if you can really run an entire passing game through him because he doesn't do enough. Even in Seattle, like, they use Tyler Lockett for a lot of their stuff because DK Metcalf is somewhat limited, you know? And he's bigger. He's better than Jamar Chase is going to be.
Interesting for sure.
He said, Last Second Sports says Jamar Chase is Kenny Galladay Bolden mix.
I mean, again, Kenny Galladay is 6'4", has what, 34-inch arms?
I don't know if I would take a wide receiver round 1 this year. I know that 3 are going to go top 15, and they might deserve it, but I just might err on the side of caution if I were those teams and be like, I'll just wait this year. Because I like Kadarius Toney as much as those 3 guys.
You like him that much? Because
he offers
Toney's my
so
favorite
much
player in the draft, but I don't like him that much.
I mean, he offers so much more. You can use him in all those gadget plays. You can use him as a returner. He's not as big as Jamar Chase, but you can use him in more ways. And I don't even know how I question Chase's wingspan anyway. I don't know. I like Toney, especially for the value.
I think Juju is a good expectation of how good he's going to be. Juju's a solid player, not a number 1 receiver, but a good receiver in the NFL. I mean, Blake, so we'll get more into it. Blake and I do have a guy that we both love in the draft amongst the receivers. So we'll definitely talk about this later. So Grant, we got you on. There's some big news in Seattle. You know, you're a Niners guy. You're a Niners reporter. I'm a Niners fan. Blake has now become a pseudo Niners fan. I know they're now his second favorite team, but there's big news in Seattle in regards to Russell Wilson. So let's talk about it. Blake, I'm going to start with you. Will Seattle trade Russell Wilson this year?
Not this year. I think he'll play this year, but I don't think he'll finish his contract. I think no chance he'll finish his contract. I think it's kind of like the Tom Brady situation that we saw in Tampa Bay a few years ago, where he's like, "Oh, I don't want to be here," and there was stuff about him leaving, and everyone's like, "Oh no, that's crazy." Like Tom Brady would not leave the Patriots, and he ended up leaving. And I think we're going through the same sort of motions now with Russell Wilson. That no way he'll actually leave, or no way they would actually consider trading him. But this team has not been to the NFC Championship game since 2014. They haven't had the most success in the postseason, and it's kind of the Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson relationship is not looking like the best. I don't think he'll be traded this year, but I do think he'll be traded next year or in the future.
Grant?
Okay. So I'm just looking. He has a no trade clause, correct? But he will waive it.
Sure about that.
I think he would waive it for the Bears.
It says Russell Wilson might waive his no trade clause for these 14. That's what it says in the LA Times. And the teams are the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Saints, and the Bears. What if the Cowboys did like a sign and trade deal where they sign Dak Prescott and trade him to Seattle for Russell Wilson straight up? Is that something that could happen?
So much dead cap for the Seahawks.
So much dead cap.
Point. They would be paying like $60 million for quarterbacks on and off their roster.
Well, let me see what trading Russell Wilson after June 1 would do. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic.
Okay. Then I'll give my take on this. So
what do you think?
I actually think this is a different situation. So I like your comparison to Brady. I'm going to compare it to a different Hall of Fame.
$13 million post June 1.
So that's your quarterback, Blake, Aaron Rodgers. I think this is similar to Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers. This is Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson. I think it's just gotten stale. This is what happens when you have a highly paid Hall of Fame type quarterback, a coach. I think Pete Carroll's a much better coach than Mike McCarthy, full disclosure on that. But when you're repeatedly doing the same thing, like the Seahawks have built the same different iterations of the same type of team and gone and lost in the playoffs every single year. And when you're repeatedly doing the same thing without change, this is what happens, because everybody's got an ego and everybody wants their career to be different from just going to the playoffs and losing. Who's contented with that? Certainly not Russell Wilson, certainly not Pete Carroll. So I think this year it's all going to stay intact. They're going to run it back one more year. I'm assuming it's going to be more of the same. They'll be a 10-7, 11-5, 11-6 type team. They'll make it to the playoffs. They'll lose, and I think they'll fire Pete Carroll, and I think they'll bring in a new voice for Russell Wilson, because ultimately it's going to be Russell Wilson versus Pete Carroll, and I think you got to choose Russell Wilson just because Pete Carroll, I think, is the oldest coach in the NFL. You don't know how much longer he himself is going to be coaching, so I think that's how this is going to end up.
It seems to me that the Seahawks may have some incentive to trade him because, like you just said, they've tried it so many different ways with Russell Wilson, and they can't get it done. And I think they could look at it as like, well, we're just paying too much for a quarterback. When we won a Super Bowl and made it to a Super Bowl, our our template was way different. We weren't spending on quarterbacks. We were spending on everything else, and we had a young quarterback who was inexperienced and athletic, and it worked for us. Maybe we can get back to that template. And it seems to me, so any trade they do would either bring back probably a young quarterback on a rookie deal. So any of these teams would have to help them do that. Can the Raiders help them do that? No. Can the Cowboys help them do that? Not maybe. Can New Orleans? No. Can Chicago? Not really.
No.
So maybe they got to. I mean, it seemed to me like maybe if they traded him for Kyler Murray a couple of years ago, that'd be kind of what they're looking for. But they can't do that right now. Maybe they'll have to wait another year.
But do you think, Grant, that it's more of a Pete Carroll problem or a Russell Wilson?
You know how I feel about expensive quarterbacks.
I do. That's fair.
I think it's a Russell Wilson problem. He makes too much money, and he's upset about not getting pass protection. Well, dude, I'll tell you why you ain't getting pass protection. That's a dollar store offensive line. It has been since you've been making $30 million a year. If you want to have a right tackle, pay for it yourself, basically, by giving some money back.
So, Grant, here's why I disagree with your scenario, and it's because of the way Seattle won the first two times. In my opinion, I mean, I wasn't around for the 2000 Ravens. I was born a year before. That's the greatest defense I've ever seen, the 2013 Seattle Seahawks. Never seen a defense that good. It was like they were choking teams to death. Like, teams could not move the ball against them. The Seattle scheme was new, and because with the single high playing match 3 zone, all of that, like, that was new, and I've never seen anything like that. I don't think even if they get rid of Russell Wilson, get a buttload of picks, they're going to be able to redo that. And here's why. Because I think a lot of Pete Carroll's early career success in the draft is similar to why Jimmy Johnson had success after the Herschel Walker trade. He was in college. All those players he drafted, Earl Thomas, Russell Cohn, Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, were guys he recruited out of high school. So he knew what they were. He knew what their families were like. He knew all of those things. So he was confident drafting them. He's not going to be able to recreate that draft success from 2010 and 2011. No way. So I say you got to choose Russell Wilson, and you got to run it back. And the one thing I will say, you asked the question, Blake, on who's the problem. The problem in Seattle this year, at least, was Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson takes too many sacks. Russell Wilson passes up too many open throws. Russell Wilson's play style is a genuine problem, and his height is a problem. Is he the biggest problem in Seattle? No, but this year I didn't think the offensive line was the problem. The offensive line was probably the best in Seattle it's been in a few years this year.
No. The offensive line is not good in Seattle. No. That's not true.
It was better this year, Grant, than it's been in the last 3 years, Grant. It was better this year.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Who said, did I say it was good? I didn't say it was good. I said it was better this year than it's been in the last 3 years. He's passed up open throws. That's a problem.
Yeah, but saying like, one crap is better than other crap is they're both crap. There's been a crap off.
I didn't think
right
it was
tackle?
terrible.
Who's their right tackle?
I don't know.
Dwayne Brown's
it's Art Shell's son. It's terrible, Vish. And yeah, but you're right, though. You just said that Russell Wilson is a big part of the problem. Yeah, he is a big part of the problem. He makes too much money. He holds the ball too long. He brings a lot of these sacks on himself. And the offensive line is terrible on top of that. Yeah, dude, you're the problem. Trade that fool. If you could get the number 1 pick, yeah. But it seems like Jacksonville doesn't want to trade him for the number 1 pick. I'd rather have Trevor Lawrence, too. If you're not going to get the number 1 pick for Russell Wilson, maybe you just got to wait a year. Because he is worth a lot. He should be. He's a hell of a player.
So you're more on the Russell Wilson. It's not Pete Carroll and more Russell Wilson, Grant?
I think Russell Wilson making $35 million a year, I don't think you can win a Super Bowl that way. I think Pete Carroll can win a Super Bowl his way. He's not going to be as good of a drafter as he was 10 years ago. Vish is right about that. But you don't have to be as good of a drafter if you're paying $900,000 on your quarterback. That's the whole point. They're terrible at drafting in Seattle. If they had that young quarterback, they could actually be big spenders in free agency and, not be dependent on their terrible drafting ability.
Okay, but here's my question to you. So do you think Russell Wilson would benefit from not having Pete Carroll, or would Pete Carroll benefit more from not having Russell Wilson? Because I would say Russell Wilson would benefit a whole lot more than not having this run on first and second down all the time, take big shots, not throw the ball 30 times a game, because I think Russell Wilson definitely could do that. And he's one of the few top 5, top 7 quarterbacks that really hasn't been given that chance as the same guys as Rodgers has or Mahomes, where they are asked to throw the ball that much instead of just handing it off to the injured running back corpse that they have with Travis Homer, Chris Carson for like 3 games, Rashad Penny. Why'd they take him in the first? I don't know. And then
but didn't they try to let Russell Wilson cook this year? Wasn't that what this year was about? Let him pass. And it didn't work.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I think that they tried to let him. The problem with Russell Wilson is that his height is a problem. He can't see and make certain throws over the middle of the field. I've not seen a quarterback pass up more open 10-yard dig routes than Russell Wilson in my life. He just doesn't make those throws. Right, because he's 5'10". That's the point. And so the guys like the Mahomes, I think that's the thing. Mahomes has made everybody think because his process is so good that you can just drop back any top 5 quarterback and make him throw all the time. I think they have the right formula for Russell Wilson, given his size, given his limitations in terms of how he sees the field and all that. I still think you can win a Super Bowl with Russell Wilson. Absolutely. He's a top 5 quarterback. But I think that the way you need to use him always has to start from a strong run game. Now, you can be creative in when you throw the ball. It can be more on first down and all of that. But I think that Russell Wilson always needs a strong run game.
So, Vish, just come out and say it. You think they should fire Pete Carroll and hire who?
Anybody. I mean, whoever they think. Whoever Russell Wilson wants, hire him.
Whoever Russell Wilson wants. That's what they should do.
Hire him, yeah. Right. Because ultimately, I don't think they're recreating the success they had before Russell Wilson. I think their best case scenario is to continue to be what they are they've been the last 4 years and retry it and just do that with Russell Wilson being happy. I mean, do you see a scenario? Because I think trading Russell Wilson and trying to recreate that is it's grounds to make your franchise go from being here and you were here, now you're here to done.
Well, you wouldn't trade him for like the 18th pick in the draft. I mean, you trade him for
but even
the number 1
even
pick.
If
they would not
trade minimum. Yeah, I don't think he would. If you're trading him for the number 1 pick, it's a draft where the number 1 overall pick isn't Trevor Lawrence or some or a quarterback that
then the number 2 pick, a top 3 pick. Otherwise, Russell Wilson isn't worth that. I thought people thought he was great. I thought you just said he was top 5.
He's absolutely worth that. He's a top 5 quarterback. Right. The question is,
the Jets wouldn't trade number 2 for him?
Probably not. No.
I don't think they would.
I don't think they would.
You think the Jets feel better about Zach Wilson than Russell Wilson?
I think they feel better about Zach Wilson making pennies on the dollar than they do with Russell Wilson. Like, I know we had this conversation before with, the cheap quarterbacks is better. There is moments where that cheap quarterback blows chunks, and you have Trubisky, you have Darnold, you have a bum at quarterback, and then
that could be Zach Wilson.
I mean, I like Wilson. I like Wilson.
Yeah, but wait a minute, Grant. I'm actually not even understanding your point because, okay, you can trade him for the number 3 overall pick. There's a likely scenario that Seattle drafts the Trubisky or the Darnold or whatever. Yeah, that's my point. That's why with Russell, and it doesn't matter. You can stack the team with Mitchell Trubisky. You're not having a better team than what you have currently with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, no, I'm saying. I just said I think the Jets would trade the number 2 pick for Russell Wilson. That's all I'm saying. Should the Seahawks trade Russell Wilson for the number 2 pick? No, because I don't think Zach Wilson is worth it. But I think he's worth that, at least a number 2 pick. Maybe in another year he'd be worth number 1. But 2 is like the bottom. That's the least you would take for Russell Wilson. No, it's number 2 pick in the draft.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. But my point is the reason I say fire Pete Carroll, and hire whoever Russell Wilson wants is because of that reason. You don't know who you're going to draft
this year, though, right? It's already too late to do that.
It is. Yeah. But I'm saying, let's say perfect world. Russell Wilson's dead cap is not a problem for Seattle. They can move off of him. I would still fire Pete Carroll and keep Russell Wilson because if you do draft Mitch Trubisky, even if you put the 2013 Seahawks defense with Mitch Trubisky, you're not winning a Super Bowl. There's no way. The 2018 Bears defense was.
Who was the top head coach this year that got hired? Who was it?
Was it Saleh?
It was Saleh. Okay, who was but you wouldn't fire. You bring in an offensive coach, so you're getting who? Basically, the equivalent of.
Was Matt LaFleur the best coaching hire candidate of his hire? But he's worked with Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, so a Matt LaFleur
in the last 2 years. Yeah,
maybe
Stefanski. I don't know.
I think Pete Carroll's way better than Mike McCarthy. I think Pete Carroll's a really good coach.
I
think he
agree.
is.
I agree. But this has become stale. I also think Aaron Rodgers is a lot better than Russell Wilson. And I think Russell Wilson's a Hall of Fame quarterback, first ballot, and a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. But I just think that the best way for Seattle to go move on from this situation is bring something new for Russell Wilson.
I agree, Vish.
All right.
Grant
Well, we'll see what they do. I don't know. I don't. What do you think they're gonna do? How about that? What do you think they're gonna do? What's gonna happen? I'm curious.
Blake?
I think Wilson's going to be gone. It seems like he's made it pretty clear that it's, power or something along those lines where he wants to be the main vocal point. And it seems like the Seahawks aren't really willing to let that happen. And I know we've talked about Russell Wilson. He loves Chicago. I think he'll eventually end up there.
Why does he love Chicago?
Huh?
Why does he love Chicago?
He wants his career to tank.
And his wife too. His wife wants a bigger city. I think that definitely plays into it. You think his wife, Ciara, right? I don't think she likes being in Seattle. I mean, I think she'd rather be in a bigger city with her career. I think that somewhat plays into it. A little under the radar type story, but I think he likes Chicago a lot and would like to be the face of that franchise.
Well, anytime you can go play quarterback for the Chicago Bears, how do you pass up on that opportunity? I mean, it's just a ticket to Super Bowls and the Hall of Fame.
Be a good quarterback.
I don't know.
Nah, so for me, what will happen is I think they'll fire Pete Carroll. I think
next year,
because next year, and I think
they'll just keep Russell. Okay,
it's what Russell Wilson means to Seattle. Is Russell Wilson not the best athlete Seattle's had since Ken Griffey, excuse me?
Kevin Durant.
He was there for a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Marshawn was pretty great too, but yeah.
Yeah, but I just think because of that, ultimately, I think it'll be Russell Wilson will have the most power. I think Pete Carroll will be gone if that's the problem. Because we don't even know. This isn't set in stone that it's a beef between Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll. It's a beef between Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. There's not been enough specificity in the reporting that the beef is specific to Pete Carroll. So we don't know.
Let me ask you this. It seems to me at this point of Russell Wilson's career, what I've seen from him is he's still a really good quarterback, but he's not as elusive as he used to be. So for him to have success, you would have to not only pay him $35 million a year, but also invest in your offensive line. And that to me means and your weapons. So that means if he's going to be on a team that he wants to be on or a team that features him at his best, that defense that he's going to have is going to suck. And that's okay. A lot of Hall of Fame, like Peyton Manning had bad defenses and stuff. Do you think he's the kind of quarterback that if you gave him the offensive line and the weapons, like if you just kept him in Seattle, got rid of Pete, got rid of that defensive philosophy, bring in an offensive coach, beef up the offensive line, and just accept giving up 26 points a game? Can they win that way? Because that hasn't been Seattle's. They always have a really good defense. Can they win that way? Is he that good?
I don't think really any quarterback can do that. I mean, even the best of the best, I think that's impossible. But I'm saying I think they can go with and stop doing the same strategy they've been doing for the last 7 years. That has won them, 1 or 2, maybe 3 playoff games. I mean, I can't bear to watch Travis Homer run up the middle for 2 yards on first down. I just can't do it anymore. And I think you need a different philosophy. Now, I'm not saying they should just give in to every Russell Wilson demand that he makes, but I would rather have my quarterback be Russell Wilson instead of keeping Pete Carroll if I had to keep one. And I think that decision will be made.
Okay, so I disagree. I think Russell Wilson's way off base with the entire offensive line thing. I think they have it right with Russell Wilson. There's no point spending in the offensive line because his play style is going to make every offensive line worse than it is. Mm-hmm. When you run around end pockets instead of being able to step up when you have to step up and stuff, he's going to make offensive lines look worse. I mean, Tom Brady has made it work with bad offensive lines for years because he works the pocket better than anybody. And Russell Wilson doesn't manage the pocket at an elite level. So I think that even if you gave him a great offensive line, it's not going to change the ceiling of their team just because I think he doesn't manage the pocket well enough. That's just my take on it.
Okay, but his playing style does lead to it does exacerbate the issue. But the main issue is his contract because the left guard is Phil Haynes. The center is Ethan Posich. The right guard is Damian Lewis, and the right tackle is Brandon Shell. I mean,
I think Justin Britt got hurt, right?
He's on a different.
They're on a different team, man. This team they just can't. They don't invest in the offensive line, and that's maybe it's partly the philosophy too. They're more invested in defense because he's a defensive coach.
Yeah, so average. the defense wasn't like all that great this year.
That's a problem.
Towards the end of the
That's
year.
a problem. That's a problem when you're talking about Pete Carroll. Like the defensive coach, his offensive coordinator is going to be like mediocre at best. His defense needs to be special. And Pete Carroll, it almost looks like Robert Saleh is more involved, is more with the times than Pete Carroll, right?
But honestly, with their defense, I'm actually wondering because it feels like they fielded more undrafted players on their defense than anybody in terms of their defensive line. I'm actually interested in what they're investing in. Besides Bobby Wagner, I'm not sure what their team is spending money on. It's Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, and then like Tyler Lockett, Dwayne Brown. Is that who they spend their money on?
Yeah, they spend their money on like 8 players. Jamal Adams, Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson,
Reed, right?
Tyler Lockett. Yeah, that's Dwayne Brown. That's 5. That's about it.
So that's 3 out of 5 offensive players anyway.
Yep.
And DK Metcalf is going to join that group.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. He's going to be paid at like $17 million a year.
Yeah. And then so here's a good question from S. Thompson. What about hiring Eric Bieniemy for Russell Wilson?
What you think, Grant?
I don't know, man. Eric Bieniemy hasn't gotten any bites. It seems like there's something there with him. I don't know. He's got some weird stuff in his background from Colorado. There's some questions about his involvement in the office with Andy Reid. There's the fact that Matt Nagy freaking stinks and Doug Peterson freaking stinks. I mean, I don't know. I think there's probably other offensive coaches who were. I mean, was Eric Bieniemy good when he was at Colorado, when he wasn't with Andy Reid? I think there's a reason people haven't hired Eric Bieniemy. Beyond the reason that everyone says.
Either.
No. Yeah, 9 points. 9 points.
Yeah.
Someone else. I mean, that's the problem with hiring an offensive coach. That barrel is scraped to the bottom. I mean, who is the next offensive up and coming? Like Joe Brady, basically. That's what they could do. They could hire Joe Brady. So we'll see
Daboll.
Who?
The Bills offensive coordinator.
Oh, Daboll for sure.
Yeah,
okay, one of those two guys. Yeah, maybe. Man.
I think Daboll or Bieniemy would be decent fits, but ultimately, if Russell Wilson wants John Joe, who's the offensive coach for whatever, I just hire John Joe just because I think you just gotta give Russell Wilson one chance with whoever he wants and let it fail like that. You can't let it fail without letting it go.
I wouldn't be surprised though if it is Bieniemy. Then the thought process will be, hey, Russell Wilson's almost as good as Patrick Mahomes. Why don't we just bring in Patrick Mahomes' offense and see what Russell Wilson can do? That's basically how NFL teams think about that level of depth.
We have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. That's like kind of a Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill combination, a bootleg version. So
I wouldn't be surprised if this happens. Good call, S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson, probably. You don't know who S. Thompson is.
So here we go. We got another fiery topic here. So a lot has been, I mean, every offseason we do it, right? And it's because I think part of it is the Niners conversation, but we have the Odell Beckham conversation. Will Odell Beckham Jr. be traded? So let's ask it right now. Andrew Berry, their GM, came out and said, right, that they're not going to trade Odell Beckham. So either of you guys can take it. Should the Browns trade Odell Beckham Jr.?
Grant, you want this one?
Hold on. Why don't you go first? I want to look up his stats real quick.
Okay. I don't think they should trade him. And I think the last few weeks of the season are the exact reason why. They need someone who can go deep. Right now, they didn't have that. Higgins was good. Landry was good. The only real issue that OBJ and Baker have is chemistry. I think they really, really need him, though, for the fact they need a vertical threat. They were missing that in the playoff game against the Chiefs, and they're missing that against the Ravens as well, and then just other general games. I think they do need a deep threat. I see the reason with like the chemistry issue or people force it to him or Baker forces it to him. I think it could just be working out kinks. I think they'll be a lot better this year when they do get chemistry. I don't think they should trade him. He makes too much sense for them to have. The only issue is the cap hit of 2 receivers making a lot. That's the only big issue. But I don't think they should trade him now.
Okay, let me take the other argument here. I think they should trade him. And here's why. I think he's declining. He's going to be 29 next season. He missed 9 games last season. And here are his numbers from the last 3 years, from 2018 to now. He, yards per game, 2018, 87, 2019, 64, 2020, 45. Catch percentage, 2018, 62, 2019, 55, 2020, 53. That's scary to me. Maybe he can bounce back and have a great latter half of his career, or maybe his size and injuries are catching up to him. I would bet on that. And if that's the case, then if you wait a year and try to trade him next year, I don't even know if he's under contract. I have to look at that next. But okay, so then you're losing value and you won't get as much. If you trade him now, you might still be able to get something valuable for him. I would trade him now.
So I think the injury thing is real, right? He had the ankle surgery in New York. He had the hernia surgery last year, and now he has the ACL. So the injury thing is real. My big thing is that I think the Browns are a team that can be a Super Bowl team. They have enough cap room where they can load it all up for next year, their last cheap year of Baker Mayfield, and they can load it up, maybe go sign a Levante David, help their defensive line a little bit, beef it up, hope their secondary is healthy this year, and they can get 16 games out of Denzel Ward because he's a stud. And you have Myles Garrett, a phenomenal offensive line. Baker Mayfield, I mean, if the Niners can make a Super Bowl with Jimmy G, the Rams can make a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, you can absolutely make a Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield because he makes more plays than both of those guys. So all of that. And I think in order to do that, they need Odell Beckham. He's the one wild card offensive weapon that can change the game for the Browns. Nick Chubb is really consistent. He's a really, really, really good player, but he's not a game breaker. I think Jarvis Landry, there's no way Jarvis Landry should be paid $12 million a year. I mean, he runs routes that are between 5 to 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. I don't think he's worth that kind of money, but he's paid a lot of money. He's got great hands. He's a really good player. So I think they need Odell Beckham. I think Grant makes real points, but I think just for the fact that their ceiling is Super Bowl aspirations, and Odell Beckham is a wild card in the sense that it's boom or bust. He could be the guy that puts them over the top. He could also be a guy where they bring him back and him and Baker Mayfield don't have the chemistry figured out and it just doesn't work. So, I mean, in that boom or bust scenario, I'm gonna bet on the boom. I'm gonna give Odell a chance and just bring him back and see what I can do. Because honestly, Grant, you talk about the value this year. I'm not even sure what his value is this year at this point because he's coming off the ACL.
Mm-hmm. Well, Last Second Sports says trade him for Stephon Gilmore. I'm cool with that. And the thing's like, if they need to draft a wide receiver, that's what they should do. They should spend a first or second round pick on a wide receiver because they do. They need one. And what you said about Jarvis Landry is absolutely true. They should trade him too. I don't know what they're paying him for.
Here's the thing, though. I think the Browns need Odell a lot more than Odell needs the Browns. I think Odell would be better on another team like, say, the Patriots, where he could just take the bulk of the targets. But I still think the Browns, he's efficient on the Browns in the sense that they need him to go vertical and, like kind of Vish said, be a wild card player. Because Donovan Peoples-Jones, as pretty solid as he has been, he is not that guy. That's what this offense is missing. If they had him, I think they'd be a whole heck of a lot better. But in that same breath, Odell doesn't really need the Browns because they don't use him as much as a team like the Patriots or the Cardinals or another team that needs a receiver could use him and get more out of him.
And I think the other thing with Odell, I know you're probably checking his cap numbers right now, Grant. I can see you typing there, but
I wanted to see where they pick. I want to see where the Browns.
Yeah, so he's only getting paid $14.5 million next year, which in today's receiver climate for the type of player Odell Beckham has shown he's been in other years in his career, even if it was 2 or 3 years ago, that's a huge bargain. Amari Cooper makes $20 million, and Odell Beckham, when he's right, is way better than Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper, when he's right, is a top 10 receiver. That just tells you how good Odell Beckham is. So for that reason, I think you've got to take the chance with him. You just got to take the plunge. He's so good enough where, man, and I think Jamal has it right here. You got to try and get that chemistry right, because if you do, this team can be a Super Bowl team, because the reality is that they've got Myles Garrett, they've got an elite offensive line. Like, the reality is that the Browns are maybe a linebacker and a healthy secondary and a very good Odell Beckham away from being the team in the AFC next year.
I just don't understand why his numbers are falling off a cliff. Like, that doesn't scare you?
I
What
mean,
is that?
into a new offense. I think that has something to play with it. I mean, he played on a Freddie Kitchens teams, and I think we all saw the disaster that experiment.
Yeah, but then his numbers got worse the next year. What's that about?
Well, he was
I
injured.
mean, but in the 7 games that he played, I mean, his catch percentage was 53.
Yeah, so Baker started off slow in the offense. That's part of it. And 2, I think before Odell got hurt, they played those 3 string of games where nobody could throw the ball.
Yeah.
And they were just running it. I think Baker was throwing the ball like 10 or 15 times because the weather didn't allow them to throw the ball. And so I think for that reason, that hurt his numbers a bit. The chemistry thing is real, right? It's real. You can just see it in how Baker Mayfield's playing. But I think ultimately, again, Blake said it too. He's such a wild card. You got to give him a chance.
But again, like Jarvis Landry, 71% caught 71% of his targets. Rashard Higgins, 71%. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 70%. Austin Hooper, 65%. Like, what is going on with Odell Beckham Jr.? I didn't watch enough, but like, did they just throw him deep? Like, what the hell is that?
No. It's a chemistry.
What the hell is that?
I think it is chemistry for the most part. And he does run more deep routes. Like, yeah, Jarvis Landry is going to catch a lot of balls because he's catching it behind the line of scrimmage, right? But I don't know. I think the chemistry thing is probably the biggest issue. If he were to get traded, I know the Patriots, if they were to trade Gilmore or J.C. Jackson to the Browns, that could be a plausible trade. Because the Browns obviously need corner help, and the Patriots are starting Jacoby Myers as their best weapon. So,
check this out. Odell Beckham Jr., his average depth of target was 13.6 yards downfield. That is far. But Rashard Higgins, his average depth of target was 14.1 yards downfield.
He has great chemistry with Baker. I really think that's because, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to argue that Rashard Higgins is better than Odell. Like,
I think
he played better than Odell last year.
I think the big thing is,
how does that make sense?
So I think the big thing, Grant, is that when Rashard Higgins started getting his bulk of his targets, their offense, Baker Mayfield was way more comfortable in their offense. Now, the question we need to ask here, was Baker Mayfield more comfortable because he was more comfortable with the offense, or was he more comfortable because Odell Beckham was off the field? And we don't know the answer to that question. Me and Blake say we'll bet on it because we think Baker Mayfield was just more confident and comfortable. I think, Grant, you bring up the point of, well, he's been injured and Baker played great without him, and just draft a receiver to replace him. It's going to be a good topic to see going on.
Beckham's also like a little bit emotional. Like if he doesn't get the ball early in a game, he'll pout or get mad. He also seems like the kind of guy who would come into the huddle and be like, yo, throw me the freaking ball. Maybe that's part of the reason why the chemistry isn't great. I don't know. I've never been a big Odell Beckham Jr. fan. I always feel like he's considered like this first ballot Hall of Fame wide receiver, almost like Antonio Brown, but his production hasn't been as consistent as that. He's missed a lot of time. He's never done anything in the playoffs. Excellent athlete, excellent player, but like I wouldn't call him a first ballot Hall of Famer. If he hadn't made that one catch his rookie year, people wouldn't look at him the same way. He's a lot of hype.
I mean, he was great his rookie year. He had 1,200 yards, like, touchdowns in 12 games. I mean, he was really, really phenomenal.
But he hasn't had 1,100 yard season since freaking 2016.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not been as good in recent years, but he has shown the talent. It's an interesting
Justin
topic.
Jefferson may go down as the best LSU wide receiver of the past 20 years. Not him. Who knows? I mean, Justin Jefferson last season had 1,400 yards.
Don't sleep on Dwayne Bowe.
Hey! Yeah. I didn't know. That was before your time. No, it was before your time.
Dwayne Bowe? No, Dwayne Bowe was in my time. Him and Craig Buster Davis were the first set of LSU receivers that got drafted.
Did Dwayne Bowe play with Jamarcus?
Yeah, it was him, Jamarcus, Craig Buster Davis. They were in the draft with a bunch of busts at receiver. Dwayne Jarrett was a bust. Dwayne Bowe, Bobby Meacham was in that draft. It was
Dwayne Bowe got Jamarcus Russell a lot of money.
Dwayne Bowe had a 14 touchdown season with Matt Castle.
Hell of a player. Dwayne Bowe was good.
He was basically a tight end lining up outside.
He was tough to handle, man. He was on a couple of my fantasy football teams back when I still played that awful game.
That just tells you how far in the past Dwayne Bowe is.
Yes. All right, let's talk Jimmy, man.
Yeah. So okay, look, I'll preface this. This is not a Jimmy Garoppolo topic. Okay, We've talked about Jimmy Garoppolo enough. We've talked about him here on this channel. Grant does Jimmy Garoppolo topics all the time.
Every day.
This is more a topic about the report in regards to the Patriots, which in my opinion was super interesting. And the Patriots, basically a Patriots reporter said from everything he's gathered this week, so it looks like he had made a ton of calls, the New England Patriots plan A at quarterback is to try and get Jimmy Garoppolo. So I have two questions here for you guys. One, should that be the New England Patriots plan A? And two, what is the likelihood that they can actually end up getting him? Blake, you want this first or Grant?
I'll go. Sure. So should this be their plan A? Looking at the other quarterbacks that are out there, like available that have, had talks with the Patriots, he seems like one of the better options in the sense that he's somewhat familiar with Bill, even though it's been years. And the fact that the other guys haven't really been linked to them as much, I think he would be a great option. Now, if this all depends on if the Niners cut him and have another plan at quarterback, right? Because that's really what it comes down to. They're not just going to cut him and just go in with Josh Rosen, or at least you would think not and hope not. But I really think he is the best option familiarity-wise. They have a good O-line. I know we've mentioned it as a lack of mobility. They really do have a great O-line. Their weapons are, let's put it this way.
Some of those guys are free agents, though. But, yeah.
They're
Andrews, Tooney.
Yeah, Tooney and Andrews.
Yeah.
Their weapons are abysmal. There's really no other way.
So bad.
They have the worst weapons in the league. But they have cap space, draft guy, probably sign a free agent because they can't draft receivers well. But beside the point, I think he'd probably be their best option at quarterback and someone they could realistically.
Grant?
No, I don't think he's the best option for any team at starting quarterback. He gets hurt too much. He's straight up a mirage. I'm sorry. Burden of proof is on him. If the Patriots think that they can bring him in and rehabilitate him and keep him healthy, they're playing themselves. But good news for the Niners if they think that. And can they trade for him? Yeah, I think so. I think the Niners would be happy to send him back there. I think they just probably feel no rush. Maybe if they wait, Patriots will get antsy, offer more, or better to just trade it after the Niners take whoever they want to take in the draft, round 1 or round 2. I do think that he'll end up back in New England. And they'll be disappointed. He'll probably play pretty well, and then he'll probably get hurt, and then it'll be like, wow, what are you surprised about?
What do you think?
So I'm going to have a more positive, optimistic approach, expectation for New England. I actually think it's a great fit for New England. For whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan never fully bought into Jimmy Garoppolo. But for whatever reason, Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels have always fully bought into Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's a great fit. I think something that the Patriots have that the league has been sleeping on is they've developed a power run game that's ready to go in New England. Blake brought up their offensive line. Damian Harris from Alabama was running people over at the end of last year. So they've got a power run game that's ready to go. And I think with the NFL, with all the smaller linebackers and all of that, you're going to see that big New England Patriots offensive line run people over. They're going to run the ball and play good defense. I think they just need a quarterback that's comfortable with what they do, familiar with what they do, and a personality that they're comfortable with. I still think there's a possibility that Cam Newton is a good fit. I didn't think he played as bad as people made it out to be last year. I think people overdid it with a few tweets of him making bad throws. But in the reality of the situation is, how the hell was Cam Newton supposed to be successful throwing the ball to Jacoby Myers, Julian Edelman, who had 7 different injuries that he was managing throughout the season, and N'Keal Harry, who's lost all confidence? Like, who was going to be successful with that? But yeah, I think Jimmy Garoppolo would be a good option. I think the biggest thing to look for with Garoppolo is what do they do with his money? Because I think regardless of what happens, I don't think he will be paid or have a cap hit that's $25 million next year if he's with the New England Patriots. I think they'll manage his cap hits, and I think he's going to be in the $10 to $15 million cap range, which I think is going to work well for the Patriots. They have a ton of cap room, ton of draft picks. Their defense is going to be serious. So I think it'll be a really good fit for New England.
I don't see New England as having a great running game. I think that's a little bit of the Cam Newton effect. When Cam's in the backfield, he's pretty much the person that defenses are keying in on, and I think he's always had a good effect on running backs. If you take him out and replace him with Jimmy, who's not a zone read threat, I think look what their running numbers were in 2019 with Tom Brady. Sony Michel couldn't do anything. So I don't know about that. If they do get
Didn't
Jimmy,
have David Andrews.
Okay. Well, they may not have David Andrews next year either, unless they resign.
They have the
They
money
do have a lot of cap
him.
space. They do have the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if they. Usually, if these guys hit the open market, the Patriots won't enter a bidding war. They're kind of like the Niners that way. But we'll see. We'll see. Look, they need to get any quarterback that goes there some receivers, and maybe they'll get Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe they'll bring in Jimmy and Odell Beckham Jr.
So, Blake, before you go real quick, I did want to address, Grant, your point about the run game being attributed to Cam Newton. And so I was just wondering. I don't know how much of the Patriots you watched this year, but one of the fundamental changes that they made in the middle of this year, if you remember, they started off, Cam Newton got COVID, and they went to like 2-6, 2-7, and then they came back and finished strong, right? So when they went to 2-6, 2-7, they actually got away from doing the zone read stuff with Cam Newton. Cam Newton, when they ran the ball with him, it was a lot of quarterback power, quarterback draws where you're pulling the guard and running Cam Newton like a running back. When they ran the ball, it was Cam Newton under center, and it was turn around and hand the ball back, and it was gap scheme, power scheme, inside zone, outside zone, everything you can ask for in your run game with Damian Harris. So I think that would still be effective with Jimmy Garoppolo.
All right. Hey, that's fine, because all I saw is that Damian Harris went from averaging – well, he only ran the ball 4 times. I just know that the Patriots' run game stunk in 2019. It was part of the problem. And then all of a sudden in 2020 – it was fabulous. And so I was wondering what changed there. Well, a lot of things.
Damian Harris is a really good running back too.
Yes, he is.
I think he's a lot better than Sony Michel. And yeah, like Vish said, their O-line is really, really good with Andrews and Tooney. Do you guys think it's realistic that the Patriots actually get him? Because it would require, the Niners to have a little bit of a plan going forward without him.
I don't know. What do you think, Vish?
Yeah, so the way it's currently set up, I think when we both went on that roundtable with Jason, you said Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be the next quarterback for the Niners, so I'm assuming you think there's not a method for the Patriots to get him. I said Sam Darnold. I think that's what the Niners move is going to end up being.
Before all these reports came out from New England that the Patriots are like set on Jimmy G. Like, well, that's great news. I didn't know that. Great. Yeah. I don't know. So you think Sam Darnold?
I think the Niners will send Jimmy Garoppolo back to New England, and I think their quarterback will be Sam Darnold. When Adam Schefter tweets this news, I'm gonna tweet it with the barf emoji because I'm gonna be so upset about like all the moves we've discussed for an entire year of doing Mondays with Vish, and it's Sam Darnold that it ends up being. But
I think they're gonna draft a quarterback. I think Jimmy's going to go back to the Patriots, and the Niners will get Teddy Bridgewater, and he'll be the quarterback for like a month or 2, something like that. Teddy probably week 1, I would say.
Teddy 2 gloves. If they just draft a quarterback, just put him in there. Do not bring in Teddy 2 gloves.
They will, though. They will. I think.
Blake, answer your own question.
Jimmy's going to stay on the Niners. I'm pretty confident. I mean, I know there's a lot of coaches talk during the year and stuff, but even this offseason, they've seemed like they've remained faithful with Jimmy, and he's going to stay. I think it'd be crazy just seeing Garoppolo back in New England. That would just be crazy. Like, just the sheer madness of him being gone for, 4 years, and then him actually being the head coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a hot take, all right? I'm just going to throw out a hot take. And it's not even, it's weird because I sound like a hypocrite, but I think if the Patriots got Jimmy Garoppolo, they might end up being a better team next year than the 49ers without Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think they would be a better team than the 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo too, just saying that. Jimmy Garoppolo is not the difference here. I just think New England's going to have a loaded roster, and if they have a quarterback that they're comfortable with, who's comfortable with them, I think they're going to be a playoff team next year for sure.
They're not loaded at receiver. They're not loaded.
Don't throw the ball with them.
Don't throw the ball. Yeah, Jimmy's really good at handing off. We can say that. I mean, he's got some of the best handoff left hand, right hand. I mean, whoo! Sometimes he fakes with the left and hits you with the right. It's like, wow, no look handoffs. That's the next step for Jimmy, the no look handoff. I heard he's working on it. Sources told me.
It's a hot take, man. It's a hot take. It's not a research take.
You are wrong. Apostrophe.
All right, guys.
Right, Adrian.
Come on. We're wrong on predictions already. Gosh, if only I could see the future.
I think you really think Sam Darnold? They might do Sam Darnold, but I think that's if they miss out on whichever quarterback they're targeting. I think there's someone they like. I don't know who it is, but I bet you that's got to be someone they like. They can't be like
out of existence, baby.
We don't need anyone in this draft because we got Sam Darnold. That's like being. We don't need anyone in this draft. We got Kirk Cousins on the way. Like, no!
Speak it out of existence, baby.
Pick someone else. Because even if you do like Sam Darnold, if he plays well, you got to give him a contract at the end of the year. No! Don't do it.
I mean, Grant, you know how I actually feel about it. I'm just predicting here. I'm just predicting. So, guys, we've reached the end of our the topics we've planned. Grant's busy over here. He's gone a little delirious about the idea of Sam Darnold. But really, we're here to take your questions, Grant. I don't know what your schedule is like, but if you're willing to stick around, we'll answer a few questions and call it. Yeah. If anybody sees any question they like, let's put it up.
All right. I haven't seen one yet.
Grant,
I have to bring that.
You
what? What about what?
What would you dislike more? The Niners having Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold?
Oh man.
Would he dislike it though? That Grant would enjoy covering Mike McGlinchey, Eric Armstead, Sam Darnold all.
It would be a lot of fun. I think the Kirk Cousins would be so much fun, man. God, that would be a lot of fun. Sam Darnold, everyone knows he stinks, but Kirk Cousins, he's not that bad. He was just, it would be more interesting. I don't know. Sam Darnold would be just like a train crash. It was like, wow, he stinks again. What a surprise. I don't know. Kirk Cousins might take you all the way and then blow it right at the end. That's
like build up your expectations and hopes and then just kill you.
Oh my God, he threw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. Who was the last Niners quarterback? You lost first round.
Okay, so I think this is a great question. So Jimmy G, Kyle Pitts, Patriots. I think it's a great fit, but I'll answer this one right away here. I could see there's no way I think New England will take Kyle Pitts. Their offense is too complex. That's why they don't like taking these first-round receivers, because it's difficult for those receivers to come in and have success because they get overwhelmed by all the things they have to do within their playbook. Like N'Keal Harry, it's not that he looks like a bad football player. He just looks like a guy that's in way over his head. Like he's thinking too much. Like he's not playing naturally. And so I think that's their big problem. So that's why I think Jacoby Myers showed enough last year where he can be a number 2. And I think the name to watch with New England is the guy who I think is the best value in free agency, because actually it's 2 guys, because nobody's talking about both of these guys. Watch out for Mike Williams and Corey Davis. If both of those guys don't get big money in this market, New England might be able to grab them both or either of them on a 1-year deal. And I think Corey Davis is an absolute baller. Like you could have made the argument that Corey Davis was receiver number 1 on the Tennessee Titans this year, which is crazy because A.J. Brown's insanely good. So I think those are 2 names to watch with New England, and I think both would be studs. And I think that New England, there's no way they don't trade down and take some Alabama linebacker like Dylan Moses, or take some Alabama pass rusher or Georgia offensive lineman. I
have a quick question about the Patriots.
Funny, but yeah.
Why are they not interested in Deshaun Watson? They have the money, the cap space. They have a ton of picks, and they have the closest relationship with their general manager. Is it just that Deshaun Watson hasn't listed them as a place that he'd like to go, and they're like, well, okay, he doesn't want to play here? Is that it?
I think it goes against like the whole Patriot mentality of we're going to have cheap guys around our team. And then we've seen Bill trade Chandler Jones for a second, and he went on to be an All-Pro. But at the end of the day, they got a second and they got a ton of cap space to sign guys. You've seen like a ton of guys like Trey Flowers go to the Lions. A bunch of their, 50s and corners and all linebackers as well just leave. And I don't think they like paying dudes like that.
Yeah, I think it's just the money. They don't want to. They never paid Tom Brady like that.
That's right.
Or they did for a couple years, and they didn't win when Tom Brady was being paid like that.
Something to think about.
What are your thoughts about Quinn Meinerz, and do you think he would be a good fit for the Niners? And where should he be drafted? Okay, full disclosure, I've not really looked at the offensive lineman in this draft. I know he had a great Senior Bowl, a great week at the Senior Bowl, but Grant, if you have an answer for Jesse here.
I don't. I'm sorry. I wish I did, Jesse. You paid $5, but I don't have it. I think his name is Miners, though, and I like that he has a Z at the end of his name. I would draft him just for that. Z at the end? That's raw.
Watched him, so I can't really speak.
We'll get back to you, Jesse. Let me think. Because you spent $5, I will go and watch my coach's tape of Quinn Miners and get back to you. Next time I'm live, I'll have an opinion.
I need to get into the offensive linemen. Yeah, I haven't watched any of them. I haven't watched Penei Sewell. I haven't watched Rashawn Slater. I haven't watched any of these guys. So Elijah Vera Tucker, Darisaw, haven't watched any of them. So I just wanted to take this question because I thought it's a little wild here. My man, I appreciate you for the question, but Jake Fromm is a career backup and he's nowhere near any of these quarterbacks. If you think Kyle Trask is not an NFL starter, then don't come with me with Jake Fromm being an NFL starter because Kyle Trask is a better prospect than Jake Fromm. I love Kyle Trask.
Way better than Jake Fromm. What did Jake Fromm ever do? He's not a particularly good
He won it. Jake, you know who Jake Fromm is? He's Colt McCoy.
Yeah, a lot of bad quarterbacks in the NFL won.
Colt McCoy's a good backup, though.
Yeah,
Jake Fromm never threw for 3,000 yards in a season ever. I mean, he's no, absolutely not. No, hell no.
Chris Sims is high on Kellen Mond. Grant has talked about him too. How high do you think he'll end up being drafted? 49ers target, maybe?
I do think the Niners would like him, and they might rank him higher than other teams, but I don't know if they'll end up with him. Well, do you think he'll go in the teens or the 20s? Maybe the 20s?
Yeah, I think so.
He's going to go in the 20s. If he went 18 or 19, I wouldn't be surprised.
So the one thing I will say about Sims before you go, Blake, is that the thing I like about him is that he's usually closer to the NFL team's big board when he does his rankings itself than most other guys. Like most other guys get there because they talk to league context. Sims worked in the league and he talks to context as he's doing his evaluation and stuff. So he's usually closer. Like I remember 4 years ago when Terrell Edmonds got drafted in the first round, right? Tremaine's brother in 2018. Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, Daniel Jeremiah. I think Mayock was still doing that draft. They all said Terrell Edmonds they had as a second or third round player. Sims was confident that Terrell Edmonds was going to be a first round pick and a first round type player throughout that draft process. Like he loved Terrell Edmonds and Terrell Edmonds ended up being a first round player. So I think if he tells you that Kellen Mond is a first round quarterback in his opinion, and he thinks the league is going to be all over him, but people are sleeping on him at the moment, he's probably right.
Go ahead.
I think he'll probably be a second rounder. I mean, seven quarterbacks that are probably going to be day one, or not day one, but first and second round. How many teams need a quarterback that bad or are willing to take a quarterback that high? I think that's the main question here. I'd say second round, probably early to mid second round. I don't know. Maybe someone goes back in the 30th picks, like what happened with Lamar, just to get him that 5th-year option when the Ravens traded up. But there's a lot of quarterbacks. There's a lot. I'd say mid to early second.
Yeah, man. I'm not. To me, Kellen Mond seems like one of these quarterbacks that the NFL is definitely going to like more than the media guys. He's not the kind of guy that media scouts like because of a few reasons. His highlight reel isn't that great. You like to think about these media scouts really grinding the coach's tape. Nah. Or I mean, they watch the highlights, they talk to people, and they watch games on ESPN and they watch SportsCenter. And Kellen Mond just wasn't in those forums. You have to really watch closely and be like, oh, well, okay, his receivers are not good. His offense isn't particularly good, and yet he's executing. He's actually a pocket passer. He's not a dual threat guy. He's a pocket passer who you can appreciate him when you dig in. That's not what these guys do. I mean, they're very surface level in their analysis, which is why they get so many things wrong. The NFL digs the hell in, and that's a guy that they would like. Trey Lance, on the other hand, is a guy the media likes because it's easy. He went to the same place as Carson Wentz. He has a nice highlight reel. He makes nice throws. Boom, end of story. The NFL's going to look at him and be like, oh, wait a second. One game in the last 400 days. That's a guy who could slip out of the first round entirely. And the media people are like, oh, really? Wow, I didn't see that coming. That's what I see.
You saw the number of times they showed Jake. I thought Jake Fromm got drafted exactly where he should have last year in round 5, but they were talking about Jake Fromm since round 2. Like, how the hell is
still
Jake Fromm
available? It's crazy. Are you kidding? Wow.
So I think this is a great question because I've actually been getting into the quarterback. So I have an answer for you right now about this. So before I send it to you, both of you guys, I'm going to answer it. No, he can't get through his progressions as well as Mac Jones. I think the thing that you can like about Kyle Trask, and I think the thing to like about Kyle Trask is that he's big and he stands in the pocket. And that's not something that every quarterback in this draft does, and it's not something that every quarterback in the NFL does. And Kyle Trask is big and he works the pocket, which is a good skill to have. And that's why I think – I'm not sure why Grant likes him, but I think that's what you should like about him.
I would actually disagree with the first part. He can go through his progressions as well as Mac Jones, and I actually think he does it as well or better. To me, he has a better internal clock than Mac Jones. Mac Jones is very good, but Mac Jones is able to play in a more relaxed tempo than Kyle Trask because Kyle Trask is under siege at all times. And it's not just about going from 1 to 2 to 3. It's also because to me, a good quarterback doesn't drop back and look at a receiver. A good quarterback drop backs and has his eyes on the defense at first and then has a sense of where to go. And I think Mac Jones is good at that. I think Kyle Trask is really good at that. He really finds the open receiver quickly. And it's not like I'm looking at you, you're not open. Okay, now I'm looking at you and you're not open. It's like you're open and I'm going to get there first. And he's really good at it. The only criticism I hear of Kyle Trask is he has a noodle arm. His arm is really – it's not. It's about the same as Mac Jones. It's not a noodle arm.
It's not as good as Mac Jones, though.
You'll see. I'm 100% in on Trask. You ain't getting me to change my opinion now. Blake, go ahead.
I haven't really watched either of them too much, so I don't really have many thoughts on this opinion. I think this is you two who have seen them and have stronger opinions on them.
Trask lost those last 3 games, and he looked really bad against Oklahoma. That's why people aren't talking about him.
Long term, should the 49ers aim for a true dual threat QB versus pro style offense? Would take offense to the next level with their scheme, alleviate pressure from the offensive line? So this is an interesting question. Who wants to take this one first?
I think QC got it.
Okay, here's what I think. I don't think they can do this. I think maybe you'd like them to. But here's the problem. They open up a can of worms. And if they take it, they take Trey Lance. If they take Justin Fields, this is the problem they're going to have. People very quickly are going to figure out, hey, you said that Colin Kaepernick didn't fit your offense, and that's why you got rid of him. Well, if you take Trey Lance, it's like, well, that wasn't true at all. And we know it wasn't true. But they said that, and every quarterback they've brought in after has been a total statue. You bring in Trey Lance, and everyone's like, well, you just got rid of Colin Kaepernick for political reasons, and now he's back in the conversation. Niners look bad. I don't think they can do it. I don't think they can. Kellen Mond, he's a quarterback who can run, not a dual threat guy.
I don't think you go into this situation and thinking we need the next Josh Allen or Mahomes or Kyler who's super mobile, as opposed to just finding someone who you think can run your system the best and just rolling with them. I think that's how the NFL's been progressing as of lately. I know you guys did a video on this and how everyone's trying to find the next Josh Allen or a guy with a big arm who's mobile. I still think there's a lot of value in having like a Brady or a Matt Ryan or Kirk Cousins who can get the ball out quickly, may not be mobile, but is good in the pocket, and that still works. We've seen it with Brady. He's really good at moving in the pocket, and he gets the ball out fast, and that slows down the pass rush. That is not that much different than just running out of the pocket and escaping the pass rush. As long as you're stopping or slowing it down one way or the other, I think that's really the big point. And if they find the guy who's a statue but can get the ball out quick, that's just as efficient as being able to run around in the pocket.
Yeah, I'm with Blake. I think that this idea that you need a dual threat in the NFL is overstated and overhyped because ultimately Josh Allen is still winning from the pocket. He's just making second reaction plays too and added to that. And so I think that you need to get a guy who's going to win from the conventional way a quarterback wins first. Like just having a guy who's a dual threat like Jalen Hurts, that doesn't mean anything. Like Lamar Jackson played for Bobby Petrino for 3 years in a pro-style offense. He's a very, very accurate short thrower.
And people who don't like Justin Fields or Trey Lance are going to point to that. It's like, well, I don't know what they're like as passers. The Ohio State guy, the North Dakota State guy, I don't know. And if you like Kyler Mond, you're going to be like, well, actually, he's a polished passer who can move a little bit as well. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. So, So for that reason, I just think that I don't know if the long-term dual threat thing is ideal. Like just searching for a dual threat quarterback is pointless. You got to look at who's your best quarterback. And if he's a dual threat, that's an added benefit. But just because he's a dual threat doesn't mean he's a better quarterback than a guy who's not a dual threat.
Like if you want to have a quarterback platoon, like what they kind of do in New Orleans, then get one and pair him with a guy who doesn't move, and then have a little bit of both. But teams haven't done that quite yet.
I just like this question because I think it's funny because he was like in such a respectful way earlier in this episode. Mitch Trubisky was characterized as a bum. I think Blake a little extra passionate when he used the word bum. Bum is a pretty harsh term generally, but I think the point is with Trubisky, I think his situation in Chicago with Matt Nagy, it does suck. I mean, we've seen it. We saw at the end of this year, he's way more suited for an under center pass game that moves him around the way the Rams use Jared Goff. That's what he's suited for. But I think there's still so many limitations with his accuracy and all of that where, he's maybe not as bad as that offense has made him look. But I certainly don't think he was playing like a good quarterback either when he was put into that scheme that simulated McVay's offense to an extent. So I'm not a big Mitch Trubisky guy. I know there is a big Mitch Trubisky guy.
He's better than Darnold.
I can't wait to hear.
He's better than Darnold. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
But again, like Darnold, he needs development, I think. He had 13 starts in college. He needs some development. He didn't get it really in Chicago, but he won more games than Darnold did.
Okay. You can compare them with like they're both drafted high, haven't performed to expectations, but the thing with wins here is the Bears were not winning because of their offense. They had an offensive-minded head coach. Their defense had over 40 or 50 turnover. I think it was like 40 turnovers something. One of the most unsustainable things you can have. That's the only reason they were getting to where they were. Their offense in 2018 was hand the ball off to Jordan Howard, do some gimmicks, and that's how they were scoring points. And their defense was holding teams or scoring for them. And then in 2020, their offense played better towards the end of the year when they were, as Vish said, playing under center, handing the ball to Montgomery, and he was getting the ball like 30 times, and they were just running through the Lions, the Texans, just bad defenses, really. And
okay, let's take the wins out of it, though. I mean, Sam Darnold's quarterback rating for his career is 78. That stinks. Trubisky's is 87. He's twice been above 93. Darnold's never been above 84. I mean, Darnold, I think Trubisky's better than him.
Has Darnold ever had a player as good as Allen Robinson?
No, probably not
on his offense. Because I think situationally they're similar. I think Darnold's a bit more talented, but I think situationally they're similar because they were both put into offenses that don't suit their skill sets. And I think both of them are actually suited for the offense that we've talked about that Trubisky got to play in the last 8 games of last year, which is the simulated version of, or the Shanahan McVay under center bootlegs play action type offense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Allen Robinson's pretty good, but the rest of that offense is terrible. I don't know.
I mean, Moody's not bad. Anthony Miller's pretty good. I mean, yeah. I mean, they're not the best either. Either of them aren't the best. But and then another thing too is Mitch. I mean, maybe it's just because when I've watched him against the Packers, he really has just like never stood out as like he's gonna go make a winning play for you. It's more of like he's kind of just playing and he's there, not really helping you out all that much. The only thing, his best ability is to run, and if he's not running,
much better runner than Darnold, and he doesn't turn the ball over as much as Darnold. Darnold is just dying to give the ball to the other team. He has a fetish for turning the ball over. This is his thing. It's like, dude.
Well, I can't say anything. I can't say anything to that. All right, guys, maybe we'll take one more question. Hey, why don't we hit the Blake Griffin to the Nets, because that's been spammed in the chat. Grant, I don't know how much you really care about Blake Griffin going to the Nets, but I'm going to make you talk about it anyway, because this is mine and Blake's shows, not your show. This is not the Grant.
I can talk about
channel.
Blake Griffin.
This is Blake and Vish Sports, where we talk about Blake Griffin. And as a Pistons fan, I'm so happy Blake Griffin's off the Pistons. So Blake Griffin to the Nets. Blake, let's go. What are your thoughts?
All right. So first off, with just general depth here, like their best big man's DeAndre Jordan, and after that, it's like they play Kevin Durant at center or as the biggest guy on the court, which I think is a huge issue. Blake Griffin is not as good as he was the last few years. There's the thing, he hasn't dunked this year, which is kind of ridiculous considering the man dunked over Ikea, and that was like his main thing with Lob City. I think he'll be efficient there, setting screens, sitting in the corner, drilling threes. And then we've seen what James Harden can do with pretty much any big man that is even remotely athletic. I'm pretty sure he could turn us three, if we were a few inches taller, into a 15-5 type of guy. I think Blake Griffin will be fine, probably averaging like 15, 16 points and around 30 minutes probably would be my best guess.
Yeah, I think Blake Griffin's a good fit for them. I think Blake Griffin's a good fit as a playmaker off the bench. I think that's actually what he is. The funny thing is Blake Griffin went from a guy who just dunks with no skill to now he's like a point forward for the Pistons offense. And I think that's what he's going to be. I mean, the pick and roll with James Harden is rigged. I mean, Kenneth Faried for a month averaged 18 and 10 in the pick and roll because James Harden is just an offensive machine. So I know Grant's not a big Harden guy, but I'm a huge James Harden guy. Blake's a huge James Harden guy.
Harden's good.
So I think that ultimately, I think that Blake Griffin is going to be a good fit for the Nets. Is he going to make a giant difference? No, but they needed the piece. They needed the depth. They needed the depth. So I would say that, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Off the bench he'll be
Grant?
nice. There you go, Grant.
It was a terrible signing. It was a terrible move. Okay, the net. All I heard you guys talk about. I'm just gonna do my Skip Bayless thing because you wanted me to do my thing. It was a terrible move. Are you kidding me? No, honestly, all you guys just talked about was offense. I didn't hear you guys say one word about defense. The Nets have the number one offense in the league. They have the 26th. They're ranked. Their defensive rating is 26th. They have problems on defense. And Blake Griffin doesn't help any of those. He's just another one of these guys who sees himself as a superstar, who's focused on offense, who's not even that good, and is not going to give you anything. What they need is a role player who plays defense and center. What they got is an aging guy who sees himself as like Carmelo Anthony. Like, dude, that's not what they need. They need a guy who's committed to playing defense and playing a role. And Blake Griffin is committed to what? Shooting as much as he can, like making himself as big of a part of the offense as he can. Even if he does like accept a reduced role on offense, they need defense. So I don't think it won't necessarily hurt, but it's not helping them where they need help. I feel very strongly about the Nets and Blake Griffin now that I've thought about it for 5 minutes. Thank you, guys.
No, for me, I think that's – go ahead. My bad.
No, you can go. I was going to say, I definitely think there's truth to that, but like no one's going to be able to guard them anyway. It doesn't matter how bad their defense is.
Maybe.
The role player who can play big minutes, me and Vish have mentioned him before, but Bruce Brown, stop it. Bruce Brown can play. Good role player. He's been scoring nicely. He's a I don't know what the best term would be, but he's like a bulldog on defense where he's just all hustle, all energy. He is that guy. Now, if they had Blake Griffin, who is better on defense, yeah, that'd help. But Bruce Brown's like good enough in that sense. And I think they'll start trying once the playoffs hit. NBA regular season's like kind of irrelevant in the sense that it just doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter.
So speaking of Bruce Brown real quick, let me give you a stat on Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown had a 4-game stretch. This is Bruce Brown, former Piston Bruce Brown, who struggles to put the ball in the basket. Bruce Brown had a 4-game stretch this year where he averaged 19.5 points a game on 72.7% shooting. That's the James Harden effect for this offense. James Harden just does that to random players. If you set a screen for James Harden and you can run to the rim, you're averaging 15 plus a game because James Harden will do that for you offensively. So just wanted to throw that out there. Grant, I think the thing with Blake is that, like, yeah, the defense, they need role players. They're not finding anybody like that. And Blake is a versatile chess piece that's going to at least fit in different ways. And I think the thing with Blake that you're underrating is right now they have Jeff Green kind of playing as their small ball center. Blake still has the capability where he can be their small ball center and switch out, which is something they can't do with DeAndre Jordan. So do I think Blake Griffin is going to make a giant difference? No, but I think because of his size and skill set, he's a piece that they need because they're so limited around Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden.
I haven't watched him much on the Pistons. My memory of him was when he was younger on the Clippers and would play the Warriors in the postseason. And my recollection of him, maybe he's different now, was excellent athlete who was not particularly interested in defense. Not that he couldn't do it. It's just
so
wasn't
Clippers Blake Griffin like passed away. Blake Griffin has been reborn as this point forward who basically plays on the perimeter and shoots a bunch of threes and passes the ball, and that's his skill set. Like Blake pointed out, Blake Griffin hasn't dunked the basketball in like a year and a half.
Yeah, he hasn't dunked.
He's a point forward. Ugh.
Yes.
No. Why do they need that? Like, so he needs the ball in his hands, is what you're telling me? Or
no, not necessarily. But his game is yeah.
Blake. Nah, he's just a dunker, dude. I'm sorry. If he's not dunking anymore, I don't even like him. All I remember him was. Do you guys remember him in college? That might have been before your time.
Yeah,
Oklahoma. He could jump so high. He one time hit his head on the rim. No, on the backboard as he was dunking. It was pretty cool. That's what I remember. Guy could really.
He dunked over a Kia, Grant. A Kia. No other.
The Kia is the official car of the NBA. It's a hell of a car.
Who owns a Kia here?
This guy.
There
I go. I'm like, hey, guy. I try to tell my friends, like, hey, I bought a new car. They're like, what? I'm like, it's a Kia. They're like, that sounds great. I'm like, no, but it's a nice Kia. They're like, I'm sure, man. I'm sure. That sounds really good.
You know how they'd have been excited? I bought the car that Blake Griffin jumped over and the official car of the NBA.
You'd be like, the Kia Soul? No, not that Kia. Anyway.
Yeah, so guys, we've been going for an hour and 35 minutes. Thank you so much for joining us. Grant, thank you so much for coming on. Please subscribe, the usual stuff. We really appreciate you guys. And we'll be back this week. My exam schedule is not there, so Grant will be back. Me and Grant will be back on Monday. And then Blake and I will be back Wednesday, Thursday, sometime midweek. We got some NBA topics to do. We're definitely going to discuss the All-Star game, but that's what you guys got to go do right now.
And
go watch the All-Star game.
Maybe not next week, but maybe the week after that, I'd like to have Vish and Blake on for Mondays with Vish and Blake, because Blake is starting to understand. He knows the Niners now. He knew the NFL before. He knows the Niners for sure. You're a Niner fan now, so we got to get Blake on the show as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, baby. He knows what's up. Vish is like Vish. He was telling me that, Grant, you got to move to the Midwest. It's just the bang for your buck out here. So good. I was like, Vish, I've never lived in a place where it snows. I couldn't do it. I'm not built for that. So I don't know. God love you how you do it. I hear Chicago's extremely cold. No. Blake's
up. It's 50. It's 50 here today.
Right now? It's like 70 out here today. I'm going to go outside and just frolic in the woods.
But Grant, guess what we have that you don't have? We have Midwest ethos, which according to Colin Cowherd is the most important trait that a quarterback needs to have. Sam Darnold has Midwest ethos.
Sam Darnold's from the OC. What are you talking about?
But he has Midwest ethos.
I don't even know what that means. Colin Cowherd needs to cut that mustache. It looks terrible.
Grant, junior year AP English. Come on. Ethos, pathos, logos. Come on.
Yeah.
Ethos is the...
I know
the funny thing is pathos is the emotional part of an argument. Logos is the logical part of it. And ethos is supposed to be an ethical part of the argument. So is he saying that Sam Darnold has Midwest ethics? God only knows.
No, the definition of ethos I'm getting here is the characteristic spirit of a culture, era, or community as manifested in its beliefs and aspirations. Again, Colin, the kid is from the OC. What are you talking about? What about Sam Darnold screams Midwest to you? His face, his white skin. What are you saying?
He says big, thick, trunky. So I don't know. I guess that's what it is. Trunky.
Oh, I guess he's saying what he thinks of you guys. That's kind of I'd be offended if I were you. What are you trying to say, Colin? We keep in good shape out here in the Midwest. What are you trying to say?
All right. I think we gotta call it there. There's not much more to say. Thank you guys for joining us. Please like, subscribe. Definitely, I know you guys probably already have, but I got to tell you to do it. Subscribe to @GrantCohn on YouTube. The man's got 25K subscribers. He just bought a Kia. He's different. Make sure you subscribe to him. I'll see you guys next time.